What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, clearly I am not Steven. He is out of town this week. I'm going to be taking his place. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the youngest Barnhill brother, usually behind the cameras. Today I'm in front of them.
Let's go. Hey, guys, everybody. We have been growing this channel for years now, and that is the workhorse behind all of this that we've been doing. We appreciate you guys. And look, yeah, Steven's out of town, as Chris said, but we figured if we're going to have a mystery guest on, it might as well be the third and only other Barnhill brother. But, Chris, I want to get into UFC Noche first because that's the first thing we saw this weekend. And look, the card was awesome. It delivered in a lot of ways. I feel like San Antonio was just on fire. It was electric in that crowd. And man, we can't start anywhere besides the main event. John Silva came in as this dude, one of the fighting nerds. Obviously, they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of hype around them. And we've seen this before. A guy who isn't as proven in the UFC comes in with a potential favorite edge to him. The odds makers see a lot of the hype and they buy into it. Also, the money lines reflect where the people think the fight's going to go and who's going to win. So Diego Lopes had one of those moments, even though he's only been in the UFC a few years, where he had to prove just how good he is and just how elite he is against one of these hungry up-and-comers. It's also a little bit of poetic justice when you see a guy like John Silva, who's a dynamic striker, really known for his insane creativity. And he's throwing really interesting stuff throughout his UFC career. We saw a pretty cool spinning elbow, but he missed it. The poetic justice is the fact that Diego Lopes basically ended the night with that same shot. I thought it was beautiful. Diego Lopes is right back in the mix. He's on track towards another title shot potentially. And I thought everything from the walkout to the cowboy hat to the mustache and the cool hair, everything is working for Diego Lopes. And it was really interesting to see how John Silva had some holes in his game that we weren't aware of yet, but we realized them now. And if we realize them, definitely the other featherweights are going to realize them. Yeah,
for sure. And I'm going to give my casual take on it. I don't have
the
breakdowns like you guys have, but that first round, that spinning, whatever the spinning thing was that John Silva threw, Diego Lopes took the back from that.
Right.
If you go back to Valentina versus Grasso, whichever fight, I think it might have been their first fight, same thing. And Diego trains with Grasso. That's kind of an interesting thing. If they're spinning, they're going to catch you when your back is turned to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the spinning attacks can be great, but it's a double-edged sword. You're also turning around and giving your back to a high-level fighter. And like you said, Diego Lopes is clearly training it because as soon as he saw the twist start to turn, he was running straight in. It looked a lot like Grasso doing that. The other thing that stuck out to me, aside from that, because it sort of started everything, was the top control from Diego Lopes.
Yeah, that was quite something. And I brought it up last night. It's crazy that thing that Diego Lopes was dominating with is the reason John Jones has a loss on his record. Those shots. And when you see them, you're almost like, damn, should those still be a disqualifying move? Those things were heavy.
Well, and you know, it's so funny because the longest time the debate was about, is it too dangerous to throw, right? You can't convince me that a 12-6 elbow is more dangerous than a spinning heel kick. But after looking at it last night, you see how cut up John Silva's head was. So maybe it's not like, of course, I want the 12-6 elbow to stay. I'm with it. And we're talking about an ass whooping contest. So we kind of need to see, you know, as many weapons and tools available as possible. But what I find interesting is that the soft spot of the head up there, it seems to crack really easily. And those elbows, you know, if you've got a sharp bladed elbow, you're going to be making big cuts on somebody very quickly. John Silva's all stitched up, and hopefully he heals quickly off that one. But Diego Lopes said there are levels to this game, and obviously he means that he might not be the highest level in the world yet, but he's working towards that. And when you bring in a guy like this who has a lot of hype, he might be the future of the division. We aren't sure yet, but don't fast track him too fast, and don't think you're going to get the jump on a guy like me who is still as hungry as ever. He's been in title fights, but he's never tasted the actual gold of the UFC. So it's a different thing. And I think Diego Lopes just had a resurgence. We said it on the last week's podcast, but I think it's so true. In 10 years, Diego Lopes is going to be the Charles Oliveira, the guy that everybody loves. And from the very start, you know, jumping in short notice and taking Movsar Evloev in your debut, and then 2 years later, you're fighting Volkanovski in a title fight. Good things happen to people that say yes in this sport, and Diego Lopes is just a prime example of that. I love to see good things happening to him.
I guess to kind of wrap up this segment, I just want to get your take on it because I don't really know who it would be, but who would like Diego Lopes? Who's next for him?
Well, I've already seen some people, everybody gets online and wants to matchmake a little bit. People are saying Yair Rodriguez. They're just he's number 2 in the division. So it's kind of hard to see which direction they'll go, especially if a guy like Leron Murphy, who appears to be a top number 1 contender, is potentially getting the next title shot. That would be a perfect number 1 contenders match. We've got a guy who's been there in a title fight before and an undefeated guy who's on a really good streak and people are finally recognizing his talent. Diego versus Leron would be pretty fun. I think that would be a good one, but again, we have to figure out what the UFC is going to do with the Paramount deal with Volkanovski. Who does he want to fight? Does he have any input at all? What are they going to do with Movsar? It might end up, hey, what about a rematch? Movsar versus Diego Lopes. I mean, Diego gave everything and then some in that fight, and that was his debut. Just before that, he was fighting in Fury, and it was a regional fighter. And then he jumps up and fights one of the boogeymen of 145. Nobody really wants to fight Movsar, and he's a tough night out for everyone. So that might be what they do. I could definitely see them doing that. Also, because one of those 2 guys will likely get to the belt at some point. And if you've got 2 really fun competitive fights against them, and let's say they're split, then you've got a trilogy fight for a belt potentially later down the road. I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to see the Yair Diego Lopes because I want them to get into why those 2 don't like each other and had that heat at the press conference. If you want my take on it, I think it has something to do with Alexa Grasso. I think they both might have been dating her or something. I don't know. That's a casual take. But and then for John Silva, I mentioned this last night. I think Aaron Pico would be interesting to see. You know?
That's a great one. They're both growing at a faster rate than most people on their UFC careers as far as their trajectory. And they both are meaningful guys at 145. So I would be down to see that. I can't imagine Aaron Pico would be chomping at the bit to get into that. I feel like he might want to get his feet wet a little bit more with somebody outside of the rankings. But at the same time, if you're going to thrust him into a co-main event slot on a Khamzat Chimaev card and you're going to give him a high-profile fight, which is essentially a number 1 contenders match, because make no mistake about it, if Aaron Pico would have beat Leron Murphy, he'd be fighting for a title.
Exactly.
100%. So, I think that's a great fight. And then, you can always try to read between the lines with the MMA drama and the things that exist on the internet for us to sort of speculate on, and that could be the reason. Most of the time throughout history, if there's 2 guys feuding, there usually is a female part somewhere involved in the mix. So who knows? We won't open up the conspiracy theories here, but that's an interesting point. I think that would be a fun one. Almost would be too perfect for a Noche card. So maybe they'd have to just do it on non-Mexican Independence Day. Also, we don't need to wait a year, but that's a good one.
Thank you.
Well, moving out of 145, we got to talk about what came right after UFC Noche, which was Canelo Crawford, an extension of Mexican heritage independence celebration. So this was really a spectacle. I mean, we watched the whole card, and I mean, it took. We think the UFC events are long and drug out a little bit. Man, the walkouts, all of the stuff was just. It took too long, but at the same time, I want to give credit where credit's due. I think Netflix did a great job. I think the production looked really high quality. I think it looked aesthetically very pleasant. And then the one thing I have to really shine them up for is my TV didn't buffer one bit. There was no issues with the streaming, and that is worth its weight in gold, especially not having to pay $89.95 or whatever to UFC Fight Pass, or not UFC Fight Pass, ESPN Plus. We just log right into Netflix, go straight into the video. They put a few commercials in, but we'll deal with that.
What I like about the commercials is, for some of them, they would just split the screen, so you still can see what's going on. You're not missing any action,
Well, and they even a lot of it was Netflix shows, so you're seeing shows that you might find interesting, and then other events. They got the Tank and Jake Paul coming, so we'll see what they improve on from last night with the Jake Paul and Tank. But I don't think there was a whole lot of room for improvement because they really did a good job. There was no expense, spared. They were dropping serious coin on everything, every single aspect. I got to give a shout out real quick to Tool. It was one of the coolest walkouts ever. And I wasn't really sure how they inserted 2 members of Tool right over there by the ring, and then they just let out this insane metal like intro, only to go right into Ilia Topuria's
he was about to walkout
song. And then I will say this: it's not like Terence Crawford was jocking his style. He didn't know that was Ilia's walkout song, so it's just a great walkout song.
He just found a nice Hispanic song that sounds tough.
Yeah. So cool. I thought it was great. I thought the production was great, and then the fight was. It delivered and then some on a lot of fronts, because Canelo Álvarez is such a great fighter, and his presence is so known around the world, especially as the face of boxing. But Bud Crawford has always felt like it's not me, it's the people around my divisions. I don't have any big names. I don't have people who are good enough on fight night against me to prove that I'm one of the best in the world. I'm willing to move up as far as I need to fight either the most skilled guy I can or the biggest name. Turns out he got lucky and got the biggest name, who's also considered by most people one of the most skilled. And I mean, this was a beautiful performance from Terence Crawford. I mean, as far as eras in boxing go, I don't think there's anybody as skilled as Terence Crawford in this era of boxing. His ability to move, to improvise, to control the fight from the outside. A lot of times when we see a pressure fighter, which Canelo is very much so, he walks forward and stalks you, and then he starts to hunt, and then he usually has the bigger shots land because he's moving forward and you're moving backwards. And also the other aspect of that is people get more tired moving backwards, so you can exhaust your opponent with your pressure. And those were the things I thought would be the issue. I thought going into this fight, Bud Crawford would look really good early on because he's a faster fighter. Usually the faster fighter can get off his shots and his feints a little bit better, and he can control the ring from the outside. But if you do that for too long and you don't stay active enough, the judges start to favor the pressure fighter. And then every 5 shots you land and he lands one big one, the crowd goes crazy. It starts to sway the judges. This was not the case against Terence Crawford. Canelo had no answers, and it wasn't even like Canelo or Crawford needed to feel out Canelo and figure him out. From the very beginning, it was like Canelo needed to figure out what Crawford's up to.
Exactly.
He was moving so well laterally. His fight IQ, it can't be stressed enough how high Terence Crawford's fight IQ is. He figured out exactly what Canelo wanted to do, and then this is the chess side, the chess aspect of combat sports. He knew Canelo wanted to corner him and pressure him into the corner, and then let off a barrage of heavy punches. So what he would do is take himself to that corner, so he's engaging in that defense on his own terms. He's not being forced somewhere by Canelo. He's rather taking Canelo back there, and then he knows, like any intelligent fighter that's fighting in an open stance fight where it's a southpaw versus an orthodox, you have to escape. When you're evading laterally, you escape to the weak side, which is the lead side, because they can't generate as much power as they can with the power side. So every time we saw Canelo back him up, Crawford was ready to move on his angles, and he would always go to the weak side, to the lead side, and all that was there was a hook either to the head or to the body. And while a lot of those landed on the body, almost nothing landed on the head. Crawford's defense is always so buttoned up, and it's not even like he has to think about it. It's purely reflex at this point. The way he understands the game, understands what weapon you have available in the moment, in consideration to both men and basically the realm in which they're fighting in. I thought it was an incredible performance, and I really hope that wasn't the last of Bud Crawford, because I need to see him fight some more.
And one thing I'll add is that in the boxing world, everybody's like, oh, you got to be undefeated. The undefeated record's so important. Canelo having those, 2 or 3 losses, 4 losses, it's kind of more impressive because it shows that you went out and really tried to fight the best. You didn't just fight the easy guy who's taken a pay to let you win. You know what I mean? And so that shows you with his legacy that he actually went after the toughest fights.
And it's also proving to work for him, right? Because Canelo is the biggest boxer in the world. He's one of the only big names in boxing that has losses. Right? But it's still, he's bigger than the ones that don't have any losses. Terence Crawford last night was not as big of a star as Canelo, and Canelo has 2, now 3 losses on his record. So it's not about living and dying with an undefeated record. I think Canelo Álvarez has surpassed that, and hopefully this new era of boxing with Dana White at the helm, and I mean, he had an all-star lineup of people working, from the commentary team to everybody involved was high level and did a great job. But Dana White's main thing with the UFC was we can allow losing. We can be okay with losing. The only thing better than a come up is a come back. And people really love that. It tarnishes boxing when somebody goes 30-0 and then they lose their 31st fight against another guy who's 30-0, and then you just throw them to the side like they're nobody.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot more still to that guy. You shouldn't just throw him out.
They look at Canelo with those after last night. Some people are probably like, oh, fraud check by Canelo. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. But yeah, it's just you're fighting the best, and that happens. Speaking of Dana, he to some degree did not seem interested at all when they showed him on the videos. Right. You got the guy he was sitting next to, I don't know his name, but the Riyadh season guy. He's, shadow boxing at the camera. You got Mr. Beast waving, and Dana was like, I went to the wrong fight tonight. I should have gone to the UFC fight.
There was a whole bunch of money in that row of seats, I'll say. But it was really cool. Mr. Beast was tuned into the fights. He didn't look down at 1 second. But what I thought was interesting is Dana White is always cage side at the UFC events. And the cage sits a little higher than the boxing ring did last night. So you don't see, you might think he's looking at the monitor, but sometimes he's texting. And then last night there was no monitor there for him to block his hands. So you see when he's texting, you're like, oh, dude, it's the main event. Don't be.
And he probably wasn't even texting. He was probably watching Noche UFC while he was there.
Right. He's just like, man, I made a decision, but it looks like they're having more fun over there than over here.
Exactly.
But either way, I think it was a good event, and I'm interested to see what his role in boxing will become, because he clearly had this event go off without a hitch. It went smooth. The streaming went really well. And what I find most interesting about Dana White's next chapter of promotion is he has really spread his web wide. Think about the UFC deal. That's Paramount Plus. Well, the talks for where the UFC was going to go was Netflix. And now he's sort of finagled a way where he's got to deal with Paramount Plus with the UFC, and now he's running these big boxing events, and they're happening on Netflix. So he's dealing with two of the biggest streaming platforms of all time. And he's going to be putting on some serious events. And look, money talks. These high-level athletes want to be paid what they're worth. And the issue with boxing has always been the promoters. It's never been the fighters. Fighters at their core want to be tested. They want to fight the best in the world to prove to themselves that they're the best and prove to the world. But a lot of promoters like to get in the way of that, and it goes back to the undefeated record thing. I don't want my guy to fight your guy, so let's just make a different belt, and then you defend that one, I'll defend this one, and then every 25 years somebody will collect all 4 belts somehow, some way, and we'll promote them as the lineal champion. But I think that the way they're going to move forward, if they take a few pages out of the UFC's book and go with that model, I think they can be very successful, and you'll see a real resurgence in boxing led by Dana.
And then what's next? You want to get into the White House card? You got some Conor McGregor talks?
So I want to talk about that, because you have to stay kind of with your finger on the pulse on the internet. And when you go into some of these comment sections, you start to see what some people are saying about the White House card, and now you see some of the bigger channels are covering Conor McGregor. He's now saying he's fighting on the White House card. Is that the case? And if it is, let's just speculate on it. Who could Conor McGregor be fighting? That's the first question. The win would be at the White House, but the next biggest question would be what weight class? Now, 155 might seem like it's out of reach for Conor at this point, because we don't really know how much Conor weighs. My guess is he weighs anywhere between about 188 and 200 pounds. Somewhere in there is where he lives, and would probably prefer a cut to 170. But his career was made at 145 and 155, and all of his biggest, all the biggest names in the sport that could be attached to him are at 155. So you either there's a few options. You either have to pull one of those guys up to 170, but then we're starting to deal with why are we doing this fight? And also the fact that Conor McGregor generally needs to be the main event, and I don't think Conor McGregor will take anything less than a main event. I think he would rather wait out. So I don't know who at 170 could really get him going, aside from Nate Diaz. Now that's where they fought, was 170. So that's the first one that comes to mind. They have business. They have a trilogy that needs to be settled, and the fans would love to see that. Also, if you can't get Khabib back for the best night of business the UFC can make, do the second best night of business, which was Nate versus Conor. Just recreate that for a trilogy. I think that could sell. The only other option, and this is going to sound like a hot take to the highest level, do they make an exception and let him fight Ilia Topuria for the belt after not doing anything for all this time, if Ilia still has the belt come the White House. And if they do allow him to do that, would anybody in the top of the division really be that upset? Because if Conor McGregor is back and he's in your division and you're one of the guys that he's replacing in a title fight, that means you're within striking reach and within distance of getting a Conor McGregor fight. If he came out and said, I'm coming back for 2 more fights, I'm going to fight Ilia Topuria for the belt, I want to get my belt back. Obviously, we don't know how that fight would go, but we can assume. And then he says, but I'm going to fight 2 more times. I believe Patty would be down to say, okay, I'll hold back and let Conor McGregor do this thing in case I get that shot. I don't think Arman Tsarukyan would ever get that fight. But there's a couple of people, Max Holloway. There's a couple of people that could potentially get that fight. Now, they would all get the rug pulled out from under them if he did come out and say that. Because if he doesn't fight Nate Diaz and he does fight Ilia Topuria, the next fight he would have would be against Nate Diaz for sure.
Yeah. Well, hear me out on this. And this, again, is a casual talking. That card is on July 4th of next year. So a fighter that I'm about to name could have 2 fights or have a fight and then still fight in July.
Okay.
Again, I don't know. This might not add up at all. I know he has a losing record in the UFC. Why don't they make Max Holloway versus Michael Chandler? If Michael Chandler beats Max Holloway, gets the BMF belt, the main event at the White House is Conor versus Michael Chandler for the BMF.
Now, that could work.
That gives him a relatively easier belt to get than Ilia.
Yeah, much easier. And all you need is a belt, right? All you need is a belt on the line for Conor to take a main event slot, right? It can be the BMF that could come after a world title fight. That's okay. We can do that. But no belt is where it gets a little tricky. And then I'll throw one more just absolute controversy and just ridiculous idea out at you. What if they were really considering at one point or another doing the 165 division and then they have an inaugural first title fight at 165, bump the welterweights up to 175, and then we get the sort of increments of weight classes how people have wanted them for a long time. Those are the only ways I see Conor McGregor being able to legitimately get on the UFC's White House card, because again, I don't see how he could be a feature bout, a co-main event, or anything besides a main event. And the UFC has proven to us time and time again that they don't put people above world title fights. So it's a rock and a hard place, but only the UFC will figure out how to do this. And if they have to bend a couple rules for Conor, then I think he's earned the right to maybe get those rules bent for him.
Yeah. Well, also, it makes sense, too. And the only reason I said Michael Chandler is because he is American.
The All-American,
But Max Holloway is also American. Hawaii is part of America. He's avenging his losses now, like with the Dustin Poirier one. He has a loss to Conor McGregor. So that one still does make sense on the White House lawn for it to be Max Holloway.
That's another very live dog in that Conor McGregor sweepstakes for who gets him next. Max Holloway has a belt, and Max Holloway is very, very good and still means a whole lot in the UFC and in the zeitgeist of MMA. I think that would be awesome. And obviously we have a long time, so I'm just covering a little bit of what we were seeing over the this week's news online and stuff. But
I can tell you who President Trump wishes it would be if he was a better fighter in Colby Covington. If he was the champion, there would be no question about it. He would be your main event.
100%.
And probably they would go to the boxing world and have him fight a tomato can just to make sure he wins that fight.
Well, and I feel like he's a shoe-in for the White House card. So is Michael Chandler.
Maybe the feature bout or something.
There's a few people that definitely need to get on that card, and it'll be fun to break that one down as we get closer and they give us more like information on it. It'll be fun to see what they do. Well, we'll leave the White House there, but I want to get into what's coming up this weekend, because we've got a fight night free, another free night for the UFC, and it's Carlos Ulberg versus Dominick Reyes. Now, if this fight would have happened a year ago, I probably would have said Carlos Ulberg. It's just not in the cards for Dominick Reyes anymore. But Dominick Reyes looked really good in his last fight. So I have to now say, okay, this might be a pretty competitive fight, because we're dealing with a guy who a lot of people thought beat John Jones. Was a high-level athlete. He played other sports and then moved into MMA, which generally we see guys that have success in the big sports that pay really well. They don't really move into MMA, but if they don't have the success in the pro level after college and whatnot, then maybe they'll venture over. Dominick Reyes is one of the first big ones to do that. We've seen it before, but he's the one that really leaped into MMA and showed success. So I find this fight to be very interesting because they're both pretty big guys, pretty tall. Carlos Ulberg likes to use his range, and he's pretty versatile because he'll kick well, he'll throw strikes well, he knows how to get inside and clinch if he needs to. But Dominick Reyes, like I said, he's an experienced fighter. Anybody who fights John Jones and makes it to distance is a great fighter.
Yeah.
And now when you've got half the audience, I was in attendance that night. I was in attendance when Dominick Reyes walked out into the arena and got boos from all 18,000 people in the Toyota Center. And at the end of the 5th round, and they announced John Jones was the winner, it was roaring boos, and everybody thought he got robbed. Yeah. Now, I went back after the fact and watched the fight, not hearing 18,000 fans screaming in my ear. But I went back and watched the fight. It was very close, but I still think John Jones did enough. Okay. But I say all that because John Jones and Dominick Reyes put on one hell of a performance, and we've seen guys not even come close to as good as Dominick Reyes against John Jones. So I can't just say that this guy who is still slightly unproven in the UFC in Ulberg will be able to outclass and out-veteran a guy like Dominick Reyes.
Yeah. And I'll give you my take. I'm not going to pretend like I know either of these two guys' last 3 fights or whatever. But I do know Dominick Reyes has been knocked out a handful of times.
Yeah.
So that's what worries me. Yeah. That weight, if any, it was 205, right?
Yeah, 205.
If it connects, you're going out.
Yeah. Ulberg's a big guy. He hits pretty hard.
Yeah. I guess I don't really have a reason to give a prediction. That's just my take.
But no, we got to get one. It's the first time you're on the episode. We got to get a prediction out of him.
You know what? Screw it. I'm going Dominick Reyes.
Let's go. Yeah. All right. How's he get it done?
I think the experience is going to come in.
Okay.
Hopefully, Ulberg doesn't land one of those big shots.
Yeah.
And God, this is tougher than watching it from behind the scenes.
Right. Ain't so easy on this side of the camera, huh?
Screw it. I'm going to decision.
Yeah. So I like that. And it could go that way. Sometimes when we see the bigger guys who are dynamic and they like to use a lot of their energy early in the fights, in a 5-round atmosphere, it changes things and they have to conserve their energy a bit more. And sometimes when you're in that learning curve, you don't know exactly when those moments are. And you wind up with a little bit of gas left after the fight, or you wind up with nothing left late. And sometimes these heavier guys, even though they can throw some serious shots and land big devastating shots on each other, sometimes they also have pretty good chins. And even though Dominick Reyes has shown that he doesn't have the best chin, he's back to being confident. He's back to winning. And I like him. I think he's a great fighter. I think this fight goes... see, now it's not just the fact that predicting is hard, but this one is hard. Ulberg has some momentum. He's in a good camp. He's got good teammates, and they know how to game plan. I don't think he has to be perfect. I think Dominick Reyes will look really good in this fight, but I'm worried about his chin. And I think Ulberg might be setting up 1 or 2 big shots that could be the beginning of the end. I've got Carlos Ulberg winning this fight. It's going to be a tougher fight, but I think he gets probably a mid to late fight TKO stoppage.
Okay, so my answer actually has changed since the last time I spoke.
Okay.
I don't know why I was thinking this. I was thinking 3-round because these guys, neither of them are crazy big names. So I'm just thinking 3-round. I see a finish as well. Yeah. Like late 4th, 5th round or something.
So Reyes gets the finish.
Yeah, we're still going Reyes.
Let's go, man. Well, so that's the first prediction, guys.
Yeah.
Show Chris some love. He's been putting these videos. He's been working, for years now to help us grow this channel, and he's been doing, the Lord's work. So we can't thank him enough. Round of applause for the young man himself, the youngest Barnhill brother. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. Steven is out of town. He'll be back next week. But I want you guys to drop in the comments if you enjoyed Chris's predictions, if you thought his takes were fun. And also, we're going to add a camera over there to the production side of the studio because I think his opinions are worth hearing, and I think you guys would enjoy it. So what we're going to do is set up a camera, look for him to be added into the show in the near future. And guys, as always, thank you for watching. We can't wait to get back into it with you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hey, and one last thing. Comment, we want Chris. If you want me to stay, I might be replacing Steven full time. He might have messed up by going out of town.
Steven might have to learn how to edit now.
There we go, yeah. See y'all later. Thank you.
Peace.